The warning alarm screamed through Marcus's earpiece as his transport ship spiraled toward the unknown planet's surface. Sparks flew from damaged control panels while he fought against failing systems. The supply run to the outer colonies had gone wrong when space debris tore through his hull near Zirian's gravity well. "Come on, hold together," he muttered, hands dancing across emergency controls. The ship bucked and rolled as Zirian's purple-tinged atmosphere embraced them in violent descent. Through the cracked viewport, Marcus glimpsed crystalline forests and silver rivers rushing. Up to meet him, the crash came with grinding metal and shattering glass. When silence finally settled, Marcus found himself hanging upside down in his harness, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. His engineer training kicked in immediately. Check for injuries, assess the situation, prioritize survival. The ship's hull had split open like a broken egg, revealing Zirian's alien landscape. Strange bluegrass swayed in the gentle breeze, and twin suns cast dancing shadows through towering crystal formations. The air felt breathable through his damaged helmet sensors. As Marcus freed himself from the wreckage, a sound caught his attention. Crying. Not human crying, but something close enough to tug at his heart. Following the sound, he discovered the source near a collapsed crystal cave system, about 50 meters from his crash site. There, trapped beneath fallen crystalline rocks, was a child. Not human, but unmistakably young and terrified. The being had pale lavender skin and large silver eyes that leaked tears like liquid starlight. Delicate antennae twitched on its forehead, and it wore simple woven clothing, now torn and dusty. "Hey there, little one," Marcus called softly, approaching carefully. The child looked up at him with wonder and fear mixed in those enormous eyes. It spoke in melodic tones he couldn't understand, but the meaning was clear. "Help me." Marcus examined the crystalline debris trapping the child's leg. The formations were beautiful but heavy, and moving them wrong could cause more collapse. His engineering mind cataloged the problem. Leverage points, structural integrity, weight distribution, working quickly. Marcus gathered metal beams from his wrecked ship. He fashioned a makeshift pulley system using his emergency cable and a sturdy crystal outcropping. The child watched with fascination as Marcus explained his plan through gestures and soothing tones. "Okay, when I lift this, you pull your leg out fast, understand?" The child nodded, seeming to grasp his intent despite the language barrier. Marcus engaged his improvised lever system, muscles straining against alien geology. The crystals shifted with musical chimes. The child quickly pulled free, then surprised Marcus by throwing small arms around his neck. The embrace felt warm and grateful, transcending species boundaries through pure emotion. As Marcus checked the child for serious injuries, finding only scrapes and bruises, he realized this moment had changed everything. His mission to deliver supplies seemed insignificant compared to this small life he'd just saved. The child took his hand, tugging him toward what appeared to be a path through the crystal forest adventure was calling, and Marcus willingly followed his tiny guide toward whatever awaited in this beautiful alien world. The grateful mother's child, who Marcus learned was called Jin through pointing and simple gestures, led him along winding paths between towering crystal spires. The journey took nearly an hour, during which Jin chattered constantly in her musical language, while Marcus documented everything with his damaged recorder. Their destination was a village unlike anything in human databases. Organic structures grew from the ground like enormous flowers, their walls translucent and glowing with soft bioluminescence. Gardens of impossible plants created living rainbows between the homes, and streams of clean water flowed in carefully channeled paths throughout the settlement. Jin's excited calls brought villagers from their dwellings. Marcus found himself surrounded by beings similar to Jin, all with variations of lavender to deep purple skin, silver eyes, and those expressive antennae. They spoke rapidly among themselves, their voices creating harmonious melodies, even in apparent concern. Then she emerged from the largest dwelling, and Marcus felt his breath catch. Tall and graceful, she moved with flowing elegance that seemed to defy gravity. Her skin held a deeper purple hue with patterns of silver that caught the light like constellation maps. Her hair fell in waves of midnight blue, and when their eyes met, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. This had to be Jin's mother. The resemblance was unmistakable, though where Jin bounced with childish energy. This woman radiated calm strength and intelligence that made Marcus suddenly aware of his torn clothes and bleeding cuts. Jane rushed to her mother, speaking rapidly while pointing at Marcus. The woman listened carefully, then approached him with cautious steps. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You helped my daughter," she said in accented but clear English, surprising him completely. "I am Neva. You are injured." Marcus touched his forehead where blood had dried. "It's nothing serious. I'm Marcus. My ship crashed near the crystal caves. Jin was trapped. I couldn't just leave her there." Neva's antennae twitched with what he was beginning to recognize as emotion. She gestured for him to follow her inside her dwelling. The interior was warm and inviting, with furnishings that seemed grown rather than built. Soft light emanated from the walls themselves. "Sit," Neva instructed, disappearing into another room. She returned with a bowl of luminescent liquid and soft cloth. "This will heal faster than your medicines." As Neva tended to his wounds, Marcus found himself studying her face. Her touch was gentle but confident, and he caught hints of a floral fragrance that made him dizzy. When she leaned close to clean the cut above his eye, he noticed her breathing quicken slightly. "How do you know English?" he asked, trying to distract himself from her closeness. "Traders come sometimes. I learned from them." Her fingers traced the edge of his healing cut. "You risked yourself for Jin?" "Why?" Marcus met her silver gaze. "She needed help. That's what humans do." Neva's expression softened. "Not all beings would. Jin means everything to me. She is my only family." Her hand lingered on his cheek longer than necessary. "You will stay until you heal." 3 days had passed since Marcus's crash, and he found himself settling into village life with surprising ease. His rescue beacon remained silent, suggesting his ship's transmitter was more damaged than he'd initially thought. Strangely, the delay didn't trouble him as much as it should have. Each morning, Jin would appear at Neva's dwelling where Marcus had been given a sleeping alcove. The child had appointed herself his guide and teacher, dragging him around the village to meet everyone and learn their ways. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Marcus discovered he was picking up their language faster than any linguistic program had ever taught. Neva worked as the village's primary engineer, maintaining the bioluminescent systems and water channels that kept their community thriving. When Marcus offered to help, she initially seemed hesitant, but his knowledge of mechanical principles translated well to their organic technology. "Your people build with metal and force," Neva observed, as they worked together to repair a damaged water filtration pod. "We grow and guide." Marcus watched her hands dance over the living controls, coaxing the biomechanical components back to health. Different methods, same goal. "Maybe we can learn from each other." Their eyes met across the workspace, and Marcus felt that familiar flutter in his chest. Neva's antennae trembled slightly. A reaction he was learning indicated interest or attraction. When she leaned closer to show him a particular technique, her shoulder brushed against his, and neither of them pulled away. That evening, after Jin had fallen asleep in her alcove, Marcus and Neva sat together in her garden. The twin moons cast silver light over the flowering plants, and the air was filled with gentle music from night-blooming songflowers. "Tell me about your world," Neva said. Settling beside him on a bench that seemed to mold itself to their bodies, Marcus described Earth. Its blue oceans and green forests, the sprawling cities and quiet countryside. As he spoke, Neva moved closer, her fascination evident in how she hung on every word. "It sounds beautiful but lonely," she said finally. "So many people, but you travel space alone." "My work keeps me busy," Marcus replied, then paused. "Kept me busy. I'm starting to think I missed something important by always moving." Neva's hand found his in the moonlight. Her skin was warm and incredibly soft. "What did you miss?" Instead of answering with words, Marcus turned to face her fully. The question hung between them. heavy with implications. When Neva didn't pull away, he lifted his free hand to cup her cheek. Her antennae fluttered, and she leaned into his touch. Their first kiss was tentative, a careful exploration across species lines. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "Marcus," Neva whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This is complicated. The best things usually are," he replied, pulling her closer. This time, when their lips met, there was nothing tentative about it. Passion flowed between them like electricity. And Marcus felt as though he'd found something he hadn't even known he was searching for when they finally separated. Neva rested her forehead against his. "Jin adores you already. She asks when you'll stay forever." Marcus's heart raced. "What do you tell her?" "That only you can answer that question." The proposal of heart stew. Weeks had transformed Marcus's entire understanding of home. His rescue beacon had finally activated, indicating a search ship would arrive within days. The knowledge sat heavy in his chest as he watched Jin practice the human engineering techniques he'd been teaching her. The little girl had taken to calling him Papa Marcus. And each time she did, something warm and painful twisted in his heart. He'd never considered himself father material, too focused on career and exploration, but Jin made him want to be better, to be worthy of that trust. Neva had grown quieter as the rescue date approached. She still worked beside him, still sought his company in the evenings. But a melancholy had settled over her that made Marcus ache. They hadn't spoken about what would happen when his ship arrived that night. After Jin was asleep, Neva led him to a secluded grove beyond the village. Bioluminescent vines created a canopy of living stars above them, and the air hummed with the gentle song of night creatures. "I need to tell you something," Neva said, her voice barely above a whisper. "In our culture, when someone saves a child's life, they become part of that child's family. Not by law, but by heart." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Neva, ... let me finish." She turned to face him fully, her silver eyes bright with unshed tears. "Jin has no father. He died before she hatched from her pod. I've raised her alone for 6 cycles. She's never called anyone Papa before you." The weight of her words settled over him. Marcus reached for her hands, finding them trembling. "When you leave," Neva continued, her voice breaking slightly, "you'll take part of her heart with you. Part of mine, too." She took a shuddering breath. "So I'm asking you to stay. Not as a guest, not as a friend. As my partner, as Jin's father." Marcus pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her body against his. "Neva, my life is out there. My career, my responsibilities, ... I know." Tears spilled down her cheeks, catching the light like liquid diamonds. "I'm not asking you to abandon who you are. I'm asking you to choose who you want to become." Instead of words, Marcus answered with action. He kissed her deeply, passionately, pouring all his conflicted emotions into the connection between them. Neva responded with equal intensity, her antennae brushing against his forehead in an intimate gesture he'd learned was deeply significant in her culture. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "I love you," Marcus whispered against her lips. "Both of you. But this is asking me to give up everything I've known." Neva's hands cupped his face tenderly. "And I'm offering you everything I am. A daughter who worships you, a partner who loves you, a home where you belong." She pressed closer, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. "A life where you don't have to travel the stars alone anymore." As if to punctuate her words, they heard Jin's sleepy voice calling from the direction of the village. "Mama, Papa Marcus, where are you?" Marcus closed his eyes, the decision crystallizing in his heart. When he opened them again, Neva was watching him with desperate hope. "Teach me your bonding ceremony," he said simply. The rescue ship arrived 3 days later, but Marcus was ready. He stood before Captain Torres with a formal resignation letter and a message to send back to Earth. "Command. You're seriously giving up your commission to stay here?" Torres asked, glancing around at the Crystal Village with obvious bewilderment. "For aliens?" "For family," Marcus corrected firmly. He looked back at where Neva and Jin waited near the village edge. both wearing the ceremonial robes they'd prepared for today's bonding ceremony. "I've found something worth staying for." Torres shook his head but agreed to deliver Marcus's messages. The ship departed that afternoon, carrying Marcus's old life away among the stars. The bonding ceremony took place at sunset. When both suns cast the crystal formations in rainbows of light, the entire village gathered, their voices joining in harmonious songs that made the air itself seem to vibrate with joy. Marcus wore robes that Neva had crafted for him, woven with threads that responded to his emotions by shifting color. Currently, they glowed warm gold with happiness and deep blue with love. Neva's robes shimmered silver and purple, and Jin danced between them in bright yellow that matched her excited giggles. The ceremony itself was beautiful in its simplicity. Marcus and Neva exchanged vows in both languages, promising to share their lives, their knowledge, and their love. When the village elder placed their joined hands over Jin's head, officially recognizing Marcus as her father, the child's antennae practically vibrated with joy. "Papa Marcus is staying forever now?" Jin asked for the dozenth time that day. "Forever and always," Marcus confirmed, lifting her into his arms. Over Jin's head, his eyes met Neva's. The love he saw there made his heart race. That night, after Jin was finally settled in her alcove, Arceus and Neva retreated to their shared chamber. The reality of their new life together settled over them as they held each other close. "No regrets?" Neva asked softly, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. Marcus thought of Earth, of his career, of the life he'd left behind. Then he looked around at his new home, listened to Jin's peaceful breathing from the next room, felt Neva's warmth against his side. "None," he said firmly. "This is where I belong." Months passed in contentment. Marcus's engineering knowledge helped the village develop new technologies, while their biomechanical expertise taught him entirely new ways of thinking about problems. He sent regular messages to Earth through passing traders, sharing scientific discoveries and cultural insights. More importantly, he watched Jin grow and learn, her natural curiosity perfectly matched by his teaching style. She called him Papa without any qualifiers now. And Marcus couldn't imagine loving a biological child more than he loved this brilliant, energetic girl who'd chosen him as her father. Neva flourished too, their partnership bringing out new sides of her personality. She laughed more, took risks in her engineering work, and had begun learning human songs to sing during their evening walks. As Marcus tucked Jin into her sleeping alcove one night, she looked up at him with those enormous silver eyes. "Papa Marcus, are you happy you crashed here?" Marcus smiled, thinking of the journey that had brought him to this moment. "Yes, little star. Crashing here was the best thing that ever happened to me." And in the warm glow of their bioluminescent home, surrounded by the family he'd never known he wanted, Marcus knew he'd found something worth more than all the stars in the galaxy.